Welcome back to the Sam JW channel to talk about another battering in Yorkshire. Oxford United 0, Leeds United 4 at Ellen Road. So yes, it's probably going to be one of the shortest reviews of the campaign. Oxford United gets another battering in their adventures in Yorkshire as they face a high-flying Leeds United side, and with Gary Rowett sat in the stands, the side managed by Chris Shaw and Chris Hackett absolutely turned over. No doubt about it. We'll get on to, as you can see, the momentum chart is just disgusting. But the lineup. So, as you can see, Jamie Cummings started in goal. We had Peter Kyoto, Elliot Moore, Kieran Brown and Greg Lee in the defence. So it was a much more defensive midfield to previous games. It was a mix again, as we've seen in previous encounters. I think out of possession looked much more like a 4-5-1 in possession, more of a 4-3-3 with it looked like, to me at least, Goodrum going inside to the 10. But Brannigan and Volks anchored that midfield with Owen Dale and Tyler Goodrum out wide of them. Shemi Poheta also involved with Mark Harris up top. Obviously, we'll get into player reviews in a little bit, but look, none of these lads cover themselves in glory by any stretch of the imagination. And I think we all want to get this result out of the way extremely quickly so we can get onto some must-win fixtures for the rest of the month. First half then, so absolute pasting. There were periods of the game before we kind of got a little bit of the ball where the possession was looking kind of 72 to 75% in Leeds' favour. No doubt about it, the fact of the matter is they are such a better side than we are. And I mean, realistically, they should be, given the amount of money they've spent, both in the Premier League and since dropping out of the First Division. Obviously, they had an incredible side last campaign. Obviously, weren't able to get the job done at Wembley. Lost Crescencio Somerville, lost Jorginho Rotter, didn't lose Willie Gnonto, got Rodon back on a permanent transfer. This is a very, very good Leeds United side, and again, if they don't go up this season, it will be a massive failure. I think it's fair to say, given the quality they've got. Obviously, you've got Burnley, you've got Sheffield United, who obviously look very, very good. Obviously recently relegated from the Premier League, so they've got that little bit of an advantage over Leeds perhaps. Middlesbrough, obviously, we know how good they've looked recently. But I mean, if Leeds aren't one of the three sides that go up, I think personally I will see it as a massive underperformance. Like I say, just based on the players they've got. So Dan James opened to scoring inside 10 minutes. We'll cover Oxford's chances because there were only 3 in that first half. So you got this one from Shemi Poheta, which is Oxford's best chance of the first half. It's a relatively nice combination and leads to Shemi Poheta having no composure in front of goal, and he lifts it way over the bar. Yeah, it's Poheta needs to buck his ideas up, no doubt about it, because he has looked a bit of a passenger recently. This was probably his best performance, but even then, he spurned, I think it was 2 big opportunities he could have scored, which could have, changed the makeup of this game. If he'd scored this chance, it would have been 1-1 inside quarter of an hour. Maybe Leeds would have been a bit more wary of committing so many men forward, but they weren't. He didn't. It was 1-0. The other two, Goodrum with a very, very, I'd say wild effort over the bar. It's one of those chances we've seen Goodrum take before. Nothing troubling Eli Millier at all. And then Poheta, that was the one earlier which was blocked. Yeah, that was it from an Oxford point of view. Let's talk about this Dan James goal for Leeds. It's a case of, like we saw a lot during this game, the pace that Leeds have in their attacking third, completely ripping through Oxford's defence, stretching us incredibly. And yeah, I mean, this is... I'm not sure how much to contribute to say it's poor defending from an Oxford point of view. Elliot Moore, Kieran Brown not really doing their jobs. Greg Lee being dragged far too centrally. But at the same time, like I say, the pace they've got in those forward areas causing so many issues. And really, we haven't got the players, even when we've got our preferred fullbacks and centre halves. I'm not saying we're the slowest defence in the league, but we've got to be up there in terms of... trouble dealing with, those wide men who have got that extra burst of pace. I mean, again, if we look at this side, Kioso, this and the QPR performance, he's really not had a good December as Peter Kioso. Elliot Moore, another game where he's got completely exposed just by his lack of pace, getting dragged out of positions. Kieran Brown being Elliot's partner in crime, not in the good sense on this occasion, again getting dragged out of position, and Greg Lee doing all he can, but again not being able to deal with Dan James, with Manor Solomon, with Brendan Aronson, with Jaden Bogle, causing all kinds of problems. And so it was a really horrible first half. As you can see by the sheer number of opportunities that Leeds had, a couple of really good chances in the area where they create some really good moves. This one by Joel Pirro, it's a great save by Jamie Cumming. Jamie Cumming, the only player in this side not dropping his head, because really he can't, because if he had dropped his head, then this would have been a humiliating scoreline. These chances from wide areas are, other than maybe that one from Dan James, where it's a really, really low effort and well saved by Jamie, they're very much, struggling to break down at that time a very deep Oxford block. So they just try from range, but on the when they stretch us, that's when they were able to benefit the most. Second half is just as ugly. Again, we'll talk about Oxford's chance very quickly. Kieran Brown, header over the bar, it's a really poor one, and then two very wild efforts from outside the box from the two men in midfield. Right, Solomon is the fourth. Jaden Bogle, this is the second goal for Leeds United. Good play down the right hand side, and Bogle, he's not being tracked by Greg Lee. He's allowed so much space in the area, and it's a really, really good pattern of play by Leeds, and ends up with the former Sheffield United right back slotting home for their second goal. And they didn't let up. They didn't they smelt blood in the water. This one from Brendan Aronson, again, it's really good movement. There were some sublime moves that Leeds were putting together in this game, and like I said, the reality is we're just unable to deal with them. It's Jamie. There's not a lot Jamie can do on that one. What I think he can do a little bit about is the one from Manor Solomon. Played down the right hand side. Solomon gets it a really tight angle, so you have to credit Manor Solomon with the way he strikes the ball to put it past Jamie Cumming, but it's at his near post. It's perhaps an overused phrase by goalkeeping pundits when they're talking about the position and kind of keepers being beaten, that you should never really be beaten at your near post, especially from that tight of an angle. Look, I could understand if it was over his left shoulder, a brilliant curling effort, where Solomon hits the opposite corner. There's nothing he could have done, but it's right in Jamie Cumming, is right to, on his right hand, and there's, really maybe should be doing better on that effort. but take nothing away from another sublime move being put together by Leeds. Another example of just us being unable to deal with them stretching us. You know, Jamie made some really big saves. That one from Ramazani was, you know, it's one where he shouldn't really be beaten, but it was a pretty good header from a Ramazani. And as you can see here, a couple of kind of pot shot efforts from the Leeds players, just trying to kind of break down this Oxford side. And yeah, obviously they did convincingly. Let's very quickly go through the team and get this one out of the way, shall we? Jamie Cumming, he probably is man of the match for Oxford United. Like I say, other than the fourth, I don't think there's an awful lot that Jamie can do about any of their goals. They're all sublimely taken by the Leeds men, and you know, he's let down by the men in front of him. Peter Kioso and Greg Lee, like we said, they've not had a good month really, either of them. And I think maybe Kioso needs to come out of the lineup for the Cardiff game at minimum, maybe even the Plymouth game. Elliot Moore and Kieran Brown getting pulled apart. Like we said, the lack of pace between them mean they're getting spun by opposition wingers. And yeah, that's really not a good sign from an Oxford point of view. You know, Elliot, as good a defender he is, I think if he had a bit of extra pace, I think he'd be like top half championship quality. But that lack of that one attribute, he's get caught out so many times, and it's a consistent problem for Oxford in this championship. Brannigan and Volks. So both Brannigan, again, another. He will always give 100% Cambran. A couple of times I think he gave the ball away. Again, you know, he doesn't do that very often, but I think the frustration really setting in. Volks, another kind of below average performance from Will Volks. So of those wide men, obviously it kind of varied between a 4-5-1 and a 4-3-3. So we'll talk about Goodrum in more of a 10 role behind Mark Harris. And later Dane Scarlett when he came on. Goodrum, he had a couple of good patterns of play and a couple of good bits of movement, but Rothwell and Ampadu really marshalled Tyler Goodrum so well in this game, not allowing our little star boy to get much room at all in those spaces. And yeah, Owen Dale ran his socks off, but yeah, you know, gets the kind of the bare minimum, running his arse off, but there were periods of the game where he was a bit invisible, to be honest. Shemi Poheta, we talked about that chance he has in the first off, the really kind of gilt-edged chance in the 12th minute that he doesn't put away. Look, Shemi Poheta, I said in the summer that there's a lot of similarities between Shemi Poheta and Owen Dale when he first came to the football club. You know, all pace, getting him some really good areas, lack of end product. We really saw that today, didn't we? And then we've got Mark Harris, another lad who ran his socks off but was in the graveyard shift. Can't really go at Mark Harris, really, because, like I say, in the graveyard shift, there's not an awful lot he can do with the little service he was getting. Full complement of serves used by Shorty and Hackett. Ruben, Edwards, McEachran, Long and Scarlett. None of them were able to impact the game. Brightest of them, in my opinion, was Kyle Edwards. Obviously, he's got the motivation to it, but I think Kyle, he always looks bright. He's got that different mindset. He's got that mindset where he wants to take on a man that some of our wingers at times look scared to do. And yeah, you know, the rest of them couldn't really contribute. I mean, McEachran came on and I think gave the ball away almost 5 minutes after it came on. But damage is already done. And we get battered once again in Yorkshire. Look, the game at Bramall Lane, and I've got a horrible feeling the game at Hillsborough as well, will be ones we'll be desperate to kind of get out of the way, get behind us, because they're two really tricky places to go, and two or three grounds, I should say, that I think if we get a point out of Hillsborough, I think we'll have done really, really well. Obviously, Gary Rowett's got what's he got? He's got a couple of days to work with the players before the Cardiff game. Obviously, you know, we're right up against it now, right in a relegation scrap. So, Mr. Rowett, you've got your work cut out. I may not be the biggest fan of your appointment, but you've got a hell of a job on your hands with this Oxford side. So, let me know your thoughts on Oxford's 4-0 tonking at the hands of Leeds United, and I'll see you for the review of the Cardiff game.